Hello everyone, I'm Charlie from Dr. Wen, and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the fourth video in a series of 13 videos where I rank all of the TV stories in a certain series of Doctor Who, just in the revived era though. Today I'll be ranking all 10 TV stories from series 4 of Doctor Who. So let's get into this video. First I'm just going to provide you a bit of information about Series 4 if you haven't watched it yet, and by the way there will be minor spoilers. I will do a few minor spoilers, but some of the major ones I won't say. So I will be ranking all of the Series 4 stories. I believe there is 10 of them, because there's 13 episodes, but 3 of them are two-parters. This features the 10th Doctor. It's his final series if you don't include the 10th Doctor specials. That will be a video for later in the day. And there is a lot of companions in this series, most of them just being in a couple of episodes in the middle and in the finale. They are Donna Noble, previous companions Martha Jones and Rose Tyler, Sarah Jane Smith, and Jack Harkness, all of which we have seen before. And the main villain in this series, especially in the finale, is Davros, but the series also includes... I'm pretty sure it includes Sontarans, Vashta Nerada, and the Hath. So, starting off in 10th place is The Fires of Pompeii, which I've given a 6.7. This episode, it's not that bad. It's a historical story. I like some of them. I like the ones that don't revolve around like one famous person, but this one doesn't. This is actually a really quite a good story. It's very easy to watch, but the reason it's a 6.7 and not any higher is because it's not that memorable, and the villain is quite confusing. The whole fire god thing that was introduced in the end, the ending got quite confusing. However, Donna is brilliant in this. This is the first time she travelled in the TARDIS properly, and the side characters are quite good. It includes Peter Capaldi and Karen Gillan, both of which who appear later on in the show, in series 5 and 8. But this is still quite an easy watch and a nice story to just put on the telly. So next up, with a 6.7 as well, we have The Unicorn and the Wasp. Sorry for the relatively bad quality image, but this again is really easy watch, probably the easiest Doctor Who episode to watch, just to put on the TV. It's a murder mystery. It's set in the 1920s and features Agatha Christie. I've actually noticed that most of the lower down episodes are always set either in the past or in the present. Most of the better episodes are set in the future, I find. This one's also a 6.7 because it's got a pretty weird villain. The whole wasp thing and that necklace from India is quite confusing, especially the ending by the lake. And this still has very good things in the episodes. That's why it's not a 0, it's a 6.7. Donna is brilliant in this as always. I'm going to say Donna's really good in lots of these episodes because she is, in my opinion, she's the second or third best New Who companion. There are some that I prefer. But it's really easy to watch, and Donna is brilliant in this episode. 10th Doctor is good as always, and it's just quite a nice story. So next up we have Partners in Crime. Definitely one of the more memorable episodes because it's the first proper episode that Donna was in, not including the 2006 Christmas special she was in. This is mainly to do with characters and humour. It's not big on the plot. The Adipose aren't the best villain. I guess it doesn't really have a villain. That's why it's bad. It's definitely one of the weaker series openers, but it's definitely memorable for being Donna's first episode in the main series. And I guess the Adipose are quite funny, but still, it's more of a light-hearted character episode rather than an episode that's big on plot. So moving on, we have Planet of the Ood with an 8.1. I think this is a really underrated episode. It's set in the 41st century on the Ood Sphere, a really cold planet where the Ood are born. I don't really understand the whole thing, but it's it's actually a really good episode. The Ood are an interesting villain because at first they just seem really light-hearted and nice until they get infected with the red-eye virus, which causes them to go pretty crazy, and it's really good. Donna's kind of doing her own thing in this episode. She's still on the Ood sphere, but most of the time she's away from the 10th Doctor. I quite like episodes that are like that, where the companion's kind of doing their own thing and isn't constantly reliant on the Doctor. I'm looking at you, Rose. And it's really easy watch. Again, it's one of the weaker ones of series 4, but it's still a really good episode. Next up is the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky, the weakest two-parter in this series. It's still quite a good episode. It is 6th on this list, so not the best, but it's still very good. It's the first time we see the Sontarans in New Who. We saw them a lot in Classic Who, like in The Time Warrior and the Sontaran Experiment, and it's definitely a creature design update. They didn't have the best masks and costumes before, but the Sontarans are not the best villains. I think I'd rather see them as actual villains in Series 13. I think that'd be quite interesting. And this one, they're just kind of there because they were in Classic Who, and they kind of got to show them again. It's not exactly filler. I can imagine they planned this beforehand, but this does have my favourite side character in, Wilfred Mott, who is Donna's grandfather. He is one of my favourite characters in the entire programme, better than some Doctors in my opinion. And the cloning thing with Martha, that was quite confusing, just a bit of a side plot to fill in the time. But it was still quite a good concept, and Evil Martha was quite funny. And the final thing I've got to say about this episode is the secondary villain, that person that ran Ratigan Academy, I think he was called. That was quite unnecessary, and he ended up actually saving everyone rather than the Doctor and Donna doing it, which is quite weird. Next up, we're getting to the better episodes, is The Doctor's Daughter with an 8.7. This image actually isn't to do with the episode, it's to do with an audio series that she has called, I think it's just called The Diary of Jenny, and that's her name. It's basically about the Doctor and Donna landing on a planet that's polluted, and it's set underground, and there's these humans that are in a brutal war with these fish creatures called the Hath, which are quite silly, and find out that they're not really the villains, they're just fighting for the sake of fighting, and this war has only been going on a week. Everyone in this is just clones of their previous selves, and so is Jenny. Jenny is a clone of the Doctor. Whenever someone arrives there, then their DNA is sampled to make infinite clones of them. And that's what Jenny is. Most of it is just Martha is in this episode after she was introduced in the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky, and she is really good. Most of the time she's kept hostage by the Hath, and the Doctor, Jenny and Donna are basically trying to stop the war between the humans and the Hath. In my opinion, this is the most underrated episode in the entire series, maybe in the entire new era of the show. It has great characters and a really interesting plot actually, and the other villains, the war people, the other people who were fighting against the Hath, were fairly weak villains, but it's still a really strong episode. Next up we have Midnight, which I've rated 9. This is rated by some people as the best New Who episode ever. I still think it's an incredible episode, but I disagree. There is one episode I prefer over all the others, which I've rated in 9.9, and it's in Series 10, my favourite series. But Midnight is a horror episode. Doctor Who doesn't do horror very often, but when they do, then it usually succeeds with episodes like Listen, Blink, The Angels Take Manhattan, and Midnight. Midnight is a really creepy episode. I think they kind of whipped it together before the big finale pieces at the end. But it's really good, and they did this on such a low budget, it's incredible. Like, literally all they needed was one set piece, a little bit of CGI for the planet, and a few characters. And the actor who played the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, his son, plays a professor in this episode. And he is quite annoying. Lots of the characters are really annoying in this, which kind of makes it more funny. They all want to throw the 10th Doctor off the bus in this. But it has really good writing, an interesting villain who sort of steals the Doctor's voice, and it just has really good writing, and it's a really creepy episode. But there is a creepier episode. I'm going to get into that shortly. In third place, we have The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, which I've given a 9.1. Lots of people actually don't like this episode. They say it's too bloated, because Russell T Davies does do very explosive finales. More so than people like Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall. But this one, in my opinion, is really good. It has every companion in it. It's pretty much just fan service, but it really does work. As you can see here, we have everyone. We have Rose, the Meta-Crisis Doctor. We have Jack Harkness, the regular Doctor. Donna, Martha, Sarah Jane, Mickey, and Jackie all piloting the TARDIS. That scene was amazing. We also have the Dr. Donna. With a Meta-Crisis, it's created a second Doctor, which goes to live on Parallel Earth with Rose. And I'm not going to say which companion leaves in this episode, because that'll be a huge spoiler. But I can tell you that their departure is very sad, and there is sort of a regeneration in this episode. The 10th Doctor kind of moves the regeneration energy into his hand to stay the same, but he regenerates shortly after this in the end of time. This was a really good episode, and I just love it. In second place, we have Turn Left, which has a 9.2. It's a very divisive episode within the Doctor Who fandom. Most people, no, not most, half of people don't really like this episode. I think it's a really interesting episode than anything else. Definitely more of a plot piece than a character piece. It doesn't have much Doctor in at all. The Doctor and Donna are walking in a Chinese city at the start, and they find someone who has a time beetle, which basically puts her into a parallel Earth, which explores what would have happened if she turned her car the other way, which would have meant she'd never have met the Doctor, and the Doctor dies, and the world is in chaos after the Doctor fails to stop the Earth from alien invasion. It's a really interesting episode, definitely where all the CGI effects went. CGI budget went, and it sets up the finale quite nicely with the introduction of Rose in this parallel Earth, and I really like this episode. Finally, we have my favourite episode of this entire series, the two-parter Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead, with a 9.5. This is my highest rated Russell T Davies episode, and for good reason. I think this episode is incredible. It introduces River Song, the Doctor's wife, but before he knew her, but River had known him her entire life. One of the main characters dies in this. I'm not going to say who because of spoilers again. This is the second spoiler. But this is an incredibly memorable episode, and the Vashta Nerada, they're really interesting, creepy villains. And the person in that suit saying, "Hey, who turned out the lights?" in the cliffhanger was really creepy. And the Donna scenes in the Forest of the Dead, where she was uploaded to the computer, was, again, really creepy. And this was just a brilliant episode. So that's my list done for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. And later today, then I'll be doing a video on the 10th Doctor specials, from Planet of the Dead to the End of Time. I will see you then, and I hope you enjoyed this video. See ya.